Hi, everyone. So for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to peek into the consumer's brain. And if you think about it, any decision that a consumer makes involves thinking about the future. Where should they go on vacation? Involves imagining being on a beach in Greece or shopping in Paris in a few months. Where to go for dinner tonight involves imagining being in a French restaurant or a lively Mexican restaurant in a few hours. Deciding between a red dress or a blue dress involves imagining wearing that dress in a social event in the future. So to understand consumer decision-making, we need to understand how people imagine the future. And if we understand that and the mistakes that people make when imagining the future, we'll be able to leverage that knowledge to better frame our messages and our campaigns. So I want to start with your future. I want you all to think about yourself 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. Think about your family, your relationships, your career, to really try to come up with vivid images. Who here comes up with positive images? Put your hands up. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a few specific questions. Number one, if you're currently married, what is the likelihood that you will get divorced? 0%, 50%, 100%? Don't tell us, just keep it in your mind. Number two, how optimistic are you about the future of your family? Slightly optimistic, very optimistic. Number three, how optimistic are you about the future of the other families in this room? And number four, what do you think is the chances that you will prosper financially and professionally? Now let's see how other people answer these questions. We'll start with marriage. So in the Western world, divorce rates are 40%. That means that out of every 5 couples walking down the aisle, 2 will end up splitting their assets. But when you ask newlyweds about their own likelihood of divorce, they estimate it at about 0%. And even divorce lawyers, who should really know better, hugely underestimate their own likelihood of divorce. Now, these optimists are not less likely to divorce, but they are more likely to remarry. In the words of Samuel Johnson, remarriage is a triumph of hope over experience. Now, statistically speaking, if people are married, they're more likely to have kids. And when you ask people, 3 out of every 4, 75%, say that they're quite optimistic about the future of their own family. However, only 30% say that they think the next generation will be doing better than the current one. And this is a really important distinction, because people are optimistic about their own future and the future of their family, but they're somewhat pessimistic about the guy sitting next to them and about the future of their country, their leaders, and the world. We call that private optimism, but public despair. And one reason for this is a sense of control. People have a sense that they can control their own future, so they can steer the wheel in the right direction. But they don't necessarily have a sense that they control the world at large, so they're less optimistic about that. Let's look in the domain of work. Out of every 4 people, 3 said that they thought AI will take more jobs than it will create. That's 75%. But only 1 in 4, only 25%, thought their own job was at risk. So these are all examples of what we call the optimism bias, which is our tendency to imagine the future as better than the past and the present, to underestimate our likelihood of experiencing negative events, such as illness, divorce, and accidents, and overestimate our likelihood of experiencing positive events, such as professional success or having a talented kid. So if you think about the consumers, what does that mean? It means that they have quite high expectations, and as a result, they can often be disappointed, right? Because the expectations are higher than what they should be, rationally. But it also means that they have the excitement of anticipation, the joy of anticipation, and that's something we can leverage in marketing. So let me tell you first about a few studies that show this joy of anticipation, and then think about how we can use that in messaging. So this is a great study that was conducted at Harvard, where they asked people that were about to go on vacation every day the week before vacation, how happy they were, every day the week of vacation, how happy they were, and every day the week after vacation, how happy they were. Do you know what the happiest day was? It was the day before vacation, right? They're still in the office, working on the computers, but in their mind, they were already on vacation. And in the mind, it was quite wonderful. When they went on vacation, it was good, but it wasn't as good as it was in their mind the day before. And it turns out that people are willing to pay for this joy of anticipation. This was shown in this study, where behavioral economist George Lowenstein asked students in his university to pick a celebrity. So everyone, pick a celebrity. And then he said, imagine getting a kiss from this celebrity. So I hope you chose a good one. And then he said, how much are you willing to pay if you were to get a kiss from this celebrity immediately, in 3 hours, 1 day, 3 days, 1 year, 10 years? And what he found was that people were willing to pay the most, not to get the kiss now, but to get the kiss in 3 days. In other words, they were willing to pay in order to wait. Now, no one wanted to wait 10 years because no one wanted an elderly celebrity, but 3 days was the optimal amount. Why is that? Well, if you get the kiss now, it's over and done with. But if you get the kiss in 3 days, that's 3 days of pure anticipation, thinking about where is it going to happen, how is it going to happen, and the students really wanted that. And that also leads to this other very intriguing finding, which is about people's favorite day of the week. Think about what your favorite day is, okay? Whose favorite day is Monday? Put your hands up. That's 1 out of 1,800. Whose favorite day is Tuesday? About 5. Wednesday? A bit more. Thursday? A bit more. Friday? Lots more. Saturday? A few. And Sunday? Not many. Okay, so what did we see here? People prefer, by far, Friday to Sunday. Despite the fact that Friday is a day of work and Sunday is a day of pleasure, and it's not because we prefer to be in the office and scrolling out in the park, but it's because Friday brings with it the anticipation of the weekend ahead, everything that we had planned, and that makes us happy now. On Sunday, despite the fact that we're out in the park, we are anticipating the work week, right? And that causes anxiety. So, given that we know that people enjoy anticipation, what does that mean? We need to lean in and create this anticipation. Provide people with something to look forward to by giving them details that allow vivid imagination, but at the same time, leave gaps for their own imagination. Let me give you specific examples of how this is done. So, in a campaign for Match.com, which is a dating app, the campaign was all about anticipating the date. They were not promising that you would find the partner, that you would get married. You know, people have high expectations, they might be disappointed. They were promising something that actually they could promise with high confidence, which is before the date, people will feel this joy, this jittery anticipation. This is not the exact images that they used, but it was images like that, right? They showed the before, the anticipation. And we can do this for products and services. So highlighting the anticipation before you get the package, right? The excitement. Highlighting the anticipation of an event, such as going for a holiday. So what I told you so far about optimism and anticipation and how it makes us happy is true for most individuals in most situations. However, it does matter who's in front of us, right? And it does matter what their mental state is. And one thing that matters a lot is stress. When people are under stress, it completely changes how their brain works, and it makes them focus on negative information. And this is very relevant when there are stressful events happening in the world, such as a market collapse, or a terrorist attack, or a pandemic. Under those situations, people get quite stressed, that changes how the brain works. They start focusing on the negative information, and they can become overly pessimistic. And they could be stressed because of the pandemic, for example. However, that causes them to focus on negative information about other things, such as a product or service. It's a general effect. And it turns out that how stressed you are very much relates to how old you are. So stress starts quite low in teenagers and kids and then goes up, 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 reaches peak in your midlife, but then starts going down again. And happiness goes the other way. So it starts high and then it goes down, 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 reaches rock bottom in your midlife. But the good news is, on average, it then starts going up again. People don't know that. And it tends, on average, to stay relatively high until the last couple years of life. So the question is, what do you do if you're interacting with this kind of population, right? Whether because it's a middle-aged population or they're under high stress because of world events, how do we enhance optimism and reduce stress? So during the pandemic, we went out to answer this question. We wanted to know, what are the factors that protect people's mental health, happiness during stressful events? And we found that the #1 factor that determined people's happiness during the stressful event was a sense of control. People who had a sense of control over their own life, they were much happier and less stressed. And the effects of control was twice as much as income. So income mattered. People with more income were also happier. But sense of control was more important. It was more important than age, and whether someone had health insurance, how much risk they are under, and so on. So what this means is that what we want to do is enhance the customer's sense of control, sense of agency. And how can we do that? Well, one simple option is to give people a choice, right? Give them options to choose from. What we and other people have found, that when someone makes a choice, that immediately, the simple act of making a choice, changes the way that they view their different options. It makes them like the option that they chose more than they did just a few seconds ago. Let me give you an example to make this clear. Imagine that you need to choose between 2 cars. They're both great and you don't know what to choose, but you have to choose one and you say, okay, I'm going to choose the white one. Seconds later, people start rationalizing the choice before they even got the car, before they went in. They rationalize it and they say, oh, I made a good choice. The white car is much bigger, lots of room for my family. The other one, it really would not be the right size. So now they value the option more than they did a few seconds ago. This doesn't work if someone else makes a choice for you. They have to make the choice themselves. And when we looked at people's brain activity, we found that when they thought about the choice that they took, the reward center of the brain, that is called the nucleus accumbens, was more active after they made the choice relative to before. So you want to give people options, but you don't want to give them too many options. You may have heard about the famous jam experiment, where people were given an option between 60 different jams to choose from, and some people were so overwhelmed they just left the store empty-handed. But 2 or 3 options is a good amount. And you might want to direct the consumer toward the option that you think is best. Still make them feel that they made a choice, but direct them toward a certain option. How do you do that? Well, normally, there's 2 ways. Either you highlight the positive aspects of the thing you think they need to choose, or you highlight the negative aspects of the other options, right? What's better? So our data suggests that the former is more effective. Highlighting the positive aspects, the opportunity to get better, that is more effective than concentrating on the negative things that you want to avoid. I'll tell you about the data in a second, but what this means is that we want to reframe our message. Instead of telling someone, if you take route A, you will lose time and money, you might want to say, if you take route B, you will gain time and money, right? Highlighting how we get towards a goal. So we saw that people take in the positive, unexpected positive information more than negative in a study where we brought people into our lab and we asked them to estimate their likelihood of experiencing all sorts of negative events. For example, what is the likelihood that you will be a victim of card fraud, be in an accident, have an illness, and so on? So people put down their estimates, and then we gave them information about the average likelihood of someone like them having this negative event. So card fraud is about 70%. And then we said, okay, now that you saw that information, what do you think? What is the likelihood that you will be a victim of card fraud? What we wanted to know is whether people will take the information that we gave them to change their beliefs. And indeed they did, but mostly when the information was better than what they expected. So for example, if someone said, my likelihood of being a victim of card fraud is 90%, and we said, hey, good news, it's only about 70% for you. The next time around, they said, okay, well, maybe it's 75% or so. So they learned quickly and efficiently. However, if someone said, I think my likelihood of being a victim of card fraud is 30%, and we said, hey, bad news, it's more like 70%, the next time around, they said, for me, I still think it's about 33%. So it's not that they didn't remember what we told them, but they didn't think the bad news was related to them, but the good news was. So we recorded people's brain activity because we wanted to know what's going on inside the brain that causes people to discount negative information. And what we found was when people got unexpected positive news, there was quite a lot of brain regions that were encoding this information, including this region here called the left inferior frontal gyrus. You don't have to remember that. On the other side of the brain, the right inferior frontal gyrus was encoding negative information, and it wasn't doing as good of a job. And the more optimistic someone was, the less likely their brain was to take in this unexpected negative information. So what this means is if people take in the positive news a little bit better than the negative news, then warning signs such as this only have limited impact. Because people say, yes, smoking kills, but mostly it kills the other guy. But when they hear that the housing market is going up, they say, ooh, my house will definitely rise in price. So what this means is that we want to reframe the message. Instead of telling a teenage kid, if you smoke, you might get cancer, which is highlighting the negative, you might say, if you don't smoke, you'll be more likely to get on the basketball team, right? Highlighting the goal. Okay, so we're not necessarily aware of how our brain works. We're not aware that the fact that most of us have an optimism bias, but not under stress, at which point we focus on the negative, that anticipation makes us happy, sometimes happier than the actual event, that making a choice immediately changes the way that we see the options. But by knowing all of this, we can then better craft our message. So we talked about creating anticipation, highlighting the joy of what's to come. Considering mental state, if someone is under stress, they're going to focus on the negative, they're going to be pessimistic, and one way to reduce that is to enhance a sense of control, and we can do that by giving people options and choices, but not too many. And if we want to direct people to the right option, what we think is right, it's better to highlight the opportunity for progress, what needs to be done to get to the goal, rather than focusing on the decline. Thank you very much. Thank you.